hearing an old hardcore record and go, oh, I really love the energy of hardcore. And another fascinating genre. Tomorrow I might go in and work on that hardcore record that's ongoing. And
it's fun to work in lots of different like subgenres, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And it's I think like I don't really have an allegiance to one subgenre. I like them all, and I'm fascinated by what makes them tick in general. So I just kind of keep myself hyped and keep myself excited on that stuff in general, and then kind of focus that energy towards what's on my hard drive. So yeah, I kind of tend to go through phases from month to month and even week to week. So if I'm afforded the time, I'll just kind of focus that excitement on what's in front of me. So yeah, I've got some death metal drums to edit. Cool. I've been really enjoying death metal lately. Let's do that.
And actually going back a little bit to what we were talking about before, in terms of like mastering, you mentioned that sometimes you master, sometimes you send out. It depends on budget, it depends on the project. Like, what does that really depend on?
Yeah, it depends. I'd say budget's a huge thing. I mean, when I first started, a mentor I had early on kind of told me, a mix engineer should never master their own stuff. Always, the mentors I had early on were awesome, but they had a very traditional approach to audio and were of the school of thought that a mix engineer should never master something they're working on. And being fairly green at the time, I kind of took that very literally, and I'd have bands coming through and I'd kind of send them on their way with a bounce down, consolidated, unlimited mix and kind of go, here, I suggest you get this mastered, but if you don't, here's the bounce. And I'd kind of get feedback and go, oh, your mixes aren't very loud and stuff. So over the years, it just became necessity. A lot of bands kind of have the same mindset I had of they weren't really aware of mastering, or they didn't consider it in the process, or they aren't really fully aware of what benefits it has. So in those cases, I had to just kind of teach myself to master. And a lot of the time, if a band hasn't considered mastering beforehand, I'll bring it up and I'll say, like, look, you might get a little bit more out of this if you send it to a fresh set of ears to kind of give it that final spit clean. Or I might just kind of, like, it might not ever come up, and it might be an assumption that, this is going to be something that we're going to be designing very specifically from the ground up, and it makes more sense that I just kind of master as I go and see the whole thing through. So it depends on budget and depends on what bands want to get out of it, but it certainly has kind of forced me to kind of get my mastering chops up to a kind of workable place and learn more about the platforms that we might be delivering to, and kind of be able to give bands that option. And probably like 7 times out of 10, it'll be me mastering. And that's, like, whether I do as good a job as a mastering engineer is arguable, but I know I can make my mixes competitive and kind of get them to where they need to be and deliver them to the platforms where they need to be.
Translate help and presumably translates well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. Yeah. The thing about what I love about having a mastering engineer is that objectivity of me not having to worry, is this really done? Because I will second guess and probably undo some of my mixing moves if I'm mastering myself. Whereas if I send it to somebody else, they can be a bit more objective, be like, oh, this is great, or this needs a little bit of a bump there, or let's get rid of some of that 40 hertz, or whatever it is that I just missed. And so I love having that kind of communication and not having to say, this is it, we're done, because I think I've personally screwed up a bunch of productions I worked on by mastering it myself. Not screwed it up, but they could have come out better if I'd had less ego and tried to like persuade the artist to work with a mastering engineer.
Me too, man. Me too. Yeah.
But sometimes it's not possible, and sometimes you work on like something that's more of a demo level, and also it's like there's no budget, and like there's barely budget for me, so let's just get this out the door, and you just kind of bring it up to level and do the best you can.
Exactly. I feel you. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. Amazing. Well, this has been really, really, really great conversation. I love getting to meet you. And
likewise,
tons of takeaways here for the audience and things that I'm going to be thinking about as I'm working on, my next record. Specifically next heavy record I'm working on.
Awesome.
And Yeah, and just the final question of the show, I ask everybody who comes on. So obviously, I'll ask you as well. Just looking back on your journey, was there something that you maybe did or didn't do early on that knowing what you know now, would want to impart on your earlier self and be like, "Yo, Jack, keep at that. That's going to get you where you want to go." Or maybe it's, Jack, stop doing that. It's really holding you back. What would be that one piece of advice?
Oh man, I think there's many pieces of advice I wish I could impart on my younger self. To be honest, I think just consistency and going the extra mile. It's hard to say really, because I think I think maybe being the biggest one and the single thing I can think of out of the many. I really relate to when you said you've maybe done a disservice to a record by mastering it yourself. I've definitely been there myself.
Yeah.
But aside from all of that, I think maybe just trusting myself and being a little bit more assertive and realizing that people are coming to you for a reason, and that you have something of value to add to productions, and that confidence is gained over time with experience and with proof in delivering things. But I wish I had have just early on had the confidence to risk being looked at as the bad guy, or being risking kind of saying what was on my mind, or steering things towards a place I think they should go. Because I think a lot of the results I got when I was starting out that I wasn't happy with, which is pretty much most of them, but I think came from me just not speaking up, for maybe fear of vibing everybody out, for maybe fear of tainting the relationship between myself and the person I'm working with, or the people I'm working with. Yeah, it comes down to a matter of like, what are you pretending not to know type of thing. It's like, I know that this part can be better. I know that it's probably going to not what the band wants to hear, but it needs to be said. And it took me a long time to get the confidence to be assertive. And I think to do that, I just realized that I'm not there to hurt feelings. I'm not there to burn any bridges, but we're ultimately there to make the best thing we can make and all be happy with something. And I'm there to make those decisions that otherwise would probably slip through the net. And it just took me a long time to get confident with being able to say, hey, this isn't the performance, or this isn't the tone, or I don't think you're ready, or any number of those things that probably might be hard to hear if you're a band or a performer or an artist in the studio. But ultimately, if you realize that you're there to serve the audio and that must be done to get that result, and sometimes you've got to stand behind that and fight for it, for a lack of a better term, then it just has to be done. So you've just got to, depending on your personality type, you've just got to take a deep breath and say what needs to be said.
Absolutely. Are you the oldest child?
Youngest of 4.
Youngest. Oh, okay, cool. Because I'm the oldest, and I attribute a lot of my like people pleasing and wanting to be like on good terms with everybody from that. But anyways, I guess they're similar and different, being oldest and youngest. But
I think yeah. But same result anyway.
I think youngest and oldest tend to get along.
Definitely.
But in any event, it's totally true. And I've noticed, and I actually talked about this recently, of just having confidence of saying like, no, this is good, this is done, or this is not good, and there's a way to do it that's not, that won't upset people. You can be straight up and straightforward without offending people, because you're just you're doing it for the benefit of the art, and there's a way to do it, and that's can only be learned by like, just having good people skills and just doing it. And the longer I'm doing this, the more confidence I have with the artists I work with, and telling them, I like this, I don't like this, let's do this, this is a good idea, or let's try your idea. And you just got to do it long enough. I think, like you said, personality type. Like some people have a lot of confidence and they're just able to say things, and then they become one kind of producer. And it sounds like you're maybe a bit more collaborative, and you want to hear what the artist has to say, and that's a different kind of producer. And that's what I am. And but I've been able to build up that confidence like you over the years by just doing it And eventually you realize like, oh, I've been doing this for a while. Like I know what to say here, and I know how to deliver it. And it's like everything. Everything we do is reps. And
exactly.
Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither is your audio career. So
that's really I think you said it really well. And I mean, I had a session a week ago that really drove this home, where a musician was kind of struggling to get it within the window of where it needed to be, and was a really, really lovely individual. And I think oftentimes, like, we're probably told in life that you can be nice or you can be assertive, and those two things don't go together. But I think that's completely false. I think, as you said, there's a way to say things, and I think you can be honest and you can be assertive and you can be upfront, and you can still be a good, kind-hearted human being in the process. You don't have to rule with an iron fist or be a dick about things, for lack of a better term. So
yeah, absolutely. And if and depending on the client, you could make it humorous, and you could kind of like you could make fun of yourself even, and self-deprecate, and there's ways to like get that stuff across in a way that I love it, man. Well, Jack, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you once again for taking the time to do this. Best place to find you on the internet for the listeners? Just
jackhartleyaudio.com, my website, or at Jack Hartley Audio on Instagram, and that's where I'll be.
Amazing. All right, people, I'll have links for that in the show notes for sure. People go check out Jack and his work. Jack, thank you so much. Have a great one. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me, Ben. I really appreciate it, and I really enjoyed the chat.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Secret Sonics. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. If you've been digging the show, it would be awesome if you could share this episode or your favorite episode with a friend or two, and or leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcatcher of choice. That's it for now. Have a great week. Take care and dig in. See you soon. Bye-bye.